Steve Jobs built Apple from nothing. In the mid-1970s, he was just a young man with a vision, working tirelessly in his parents' garage alongside his friend Steve Wozniak. Together, they dreamed of changing the world with personal computers. Their passion and relentless drive turned a small idea into a revolutionary company. Apple quickly grew from a humble startup into a household name, capturing the imagination of millions and setting the stage for a technological revolution. Steve was known for his big dreams and even bigger ideas. He inspired those around him with his energy, creativity, and unwavering belief in the power of innovation. Jobs pushed his team to think differently, to challenge the status quo, and to create products that were not just useful, but beautiful and intuitive. His leadership style was intense, sometimes controversial, but always visionary. But in 1985, something shocking happened that no one saw coming. Despite his role as the face and driving force of Apple, Steve found himself at odds with the company's board of directors and CEO John Sculley. Tensions had been building for months, fueled by disagreements over the direction of the company and the disappointing sales of the Macintosh computer. In a stunning turn of events, Steve Jobs was fired from his own company. The man who had poured his heart and soul into building Apple was suddenly shown the door. He packed up his belongings and walked out of the place he had created, feeling a mix of disbelief, anger, and heartbreak. No one could believe it. The news sent shockwaves through Silicon Valley and the business world. Employees were stunned, and headlines blared the unbelievable story. The visionary founder of Apple had been ousted from the company he started. How could the founder be pushed out? People wondered how a company could turn its back on the very person who had given it life. The office felt emptier, the energy subdued, as colleagues tried to make sense of what had happened. Steve had started Apple in a garage, fueled by nothing but ambition and a belief in the impossible. He and Wozniak had built the first Apple computers by hand, dreaming of a future where technology would empower ordinary people. Now the company's board said he was no longer needed. It broke his heart. The decision was cold and corporate, but for Steve, it was deeply personal. He felt betrayed by those he had trusted, and the loss cut deeper than any business setback. For Steve, Apple was not just a business. It was the embodiment of his dreams, his creativity, and his relentless pursuit of excellence. Every product, every idea, carried a piece of his soul. It was his life's work, his passion, and his family. The people at Apple were more than colleagues. They were his partners in changing the world. Losing Apple felt like losing a part of himself. Being fired felt like being lost in the dark. For the first time, Steve faced an uncertain future, unsure of where to go or what to do next. The world he had built was suddenly out of reach. He had no idea what to do next. The path ahead seemed unclear, and the pain of rejection weighed heavily on him. But deep down, Steve knew that failure was not the end. It was a chance to begin again. Sometimes, even the greatest fall. Even visionaries stumble and lose their way. But it is in these moments of darkness that true character is revealed. But that is not the end of the story. It's just the beginning. Steve Jobs' journey was far from over. In fact, his greatest achievements were still to come, born from the lessons he learned in his darkest hour. Steve Jobs grew up in the sun-soaked neighborhoods of California, surrounded by the gentle hum of suburban life. His early years were filled with the warmth of family and the promise of endless possibilities. Even as a child, Steve's world was one of curiosity and wonder, where every day brought a new question and every object seemed to hold a secret waiting to be discovered. From a young age, Steve was endlessly curious about everything around him. He would spend hours examining how things worked, often asking questions that adults struggled to answer. His mind was always searching, always hungry for knowledge, and he never settled for simple explanations. Steve's curiosity soon turned into a passion for tinkering. He loved to take things apart, radios, televisions, anything he could get his hands on, and then challenge himself to put them back together. Sometimes, he'd even improve them, adding his own creative twists. This hands-on learning became the foundation for his future innovations. In high school, Steve met a kindred spirit, Steve Wozniak. Woz, as he was known, shared Steve's fascination with electronics and computers. The two quickly became friends, bonding over their shared love for technology and their dreams of building something extraordinary. One day, inspired by their late-night conversations and wild ideas, the two Steves decided to build a computer together. It was a bold idea at a time when computers were massive, expensive, and only found in big companies or universities. They set up shop in the Jobs family garage, a cramped, cluttered space filled with wires, circuit boards, and the smell of solder. Night after night, they worked tirelessly, fueled by pizza, soda, and an unshakable belief in their vision. Money was tight, and resources were scarce, but their determination never wavered. To fund their project, Steve and Woz sold whatever they could spare. Old gadgets, cherished possessions, and even family treasures went up for sale. Every dollar they earned went straight into buying the parts they needed to bring their dream to life. Steve even made the difficult decision to sell his beloved old Volkswagen van. It was more than just a car, it was a symbol of his independence and youth. But for Steve, the dream of building a revolutionary computer was worth any sacrifice. The garage was far from glamorous. It was small, messy, and often freezing cold at night. Wires snaked across the floor and half-finished projects piled up in every corner. But to Steve, it was a place of endless possibility, a blank canvas for his imagination. While others might have seen only chaos, Steve saw something magical in that humble garage. He believed that greatness could come from the most unlikely places, and that with enough passion and hard work, even the smallest beginnings could lead to something world-changing. Late at night, Steve would sketch out ideas for new computers, dreaming of machines that were simple, beautiful, and accessible to everyone. He imagined a future where technology was not just for experts, but for ordinary people in their homes. In that little garage, Steve's dreams grew bigger every day. He wanted to change the world, starting from that modest workspace. His vision was clear: to make technology personal, to empower people, and to leave a lasting mark on history. Steve dreamed of a day when every family would have a computer in their home, a tool for learning, creating, and connecting. It was a radical idea at the time, but Steve believed it was possible. That dream, born in a cluttered garage and fueled by hope, determination, and friendship, was just getting started. So, the journey, would be long and challenging, but Steve Jobs was ready to change the world, one idea at a time. In the mid-1970s, a revolution was quietly brewing in a small garage in California. This was the birthplace of Apple, a company that would soon change the world of technology forever. The first Apple computers, built by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, were unlike anything people had seen before. They were simple, compact, and designed for everyday people, not just engineers or hobbyists. When Apple introduced the Apple I and later the Apple II, the response was electric. Suddenly, computers weren't just for big corporations or universities. They could be in homes, schools, and small businesses everywhere. People loved how easy they were to use. For the first time, technology felt friendly and approachable. The Apple II dynasties with its color, graphics, and user-friendly design, became a symbol of innovation. Families gathered around their new computers, students learned to code, and small businesses found new ways to work. Apple's products sparked excitement and curiosity, making technology accessible to millions. Steve Jobs was only in his 20s, but he quickly became a household name. His passion and vision set him apart from other young entrepreneurs. The media couldn't get enough of his story, a college dropout who dreamed big and dared to challenge the status quo. Under his leadership, Apple grew at an astonishing pace, hiring new talent and expanding its reach across the country. Soon, Apple was worth millions of dollars. The company's stock soared, and investors lined up to be part of the next big thing. Apple's offices buzzed with energy and optimism. It seemed like nothing could stop their momentum. But, with rapid growth came new challenges. Steve was excited about Apple's success, but he also felt the weight of responsibility. He worried about making the right decisions and keeping the company true to his vision. The pressure to innovate and stay ahead of competitors was intense. As Apple got bigger, there were more problems to solve. The company had to manage more employees, bigger projects, and higher expectations. Not everyone agreed on the best path forward, and tensions began to rise within the team. Some people on Steve's team didn't like his bold ideas. They worried that his ambitious plans were too risky or expensive. Arguments broke out during meetings with passionate debates about what Apple should do next. The team often found themselves divided. Some wanted to play it safe, while others believed in Steve's vision for groundbreaking products. These disagreements sometimes turned into heated arguments, making it hard to find common ground. Steve was stubborn. He refused to compromise on his ideals, believing that only by taking risks could Apple truly innovate. He pushed his team hard, demanding excellence and creativity at every turn. The board of directors, however, had a different perspective. They wanted Apple to be safe and stable, to protect the company's growing wealth and reputation. They worried that Steve's relentless drive might put everything at risk. Steve wanted Apple to be bold, to lead the world with daring new ideas. The fights between him and the board grew more intense. Each side believed they knew what was best for Apple's future, but their visions couldn't be more different. Still, Steve never gave up his vision. He spent long hours sketching new product ideas and inspiring his team to think differently. He believed that Apple could change lives by making technology beautiful, simple, and powerful. Success can be hard. Sometimes it brings new problems and tough choices. For Steve Jobs and Apple, the journey was just beginning, full of promise, but also full of challenges that would test their resolve and shape their destiny. One day the board made a big decision. They told Steve he could no longer lead the company. Steve was shocked and hurt. It felt like his dream was stolen away. He left Apple with nothing but his thoughts and his pain. He was only 30 years old, and he wondered if he had already lived his best years. He felt alone and defeated. Steve spent time thinking about what went wrong. He realized he made mistakes, but he also felt lost without Apple. He missed working on ideas that mattered. He missed his team. Even heroes fall. It is what they do next that matters most. Steve Jobs did not give up. He decided to start again. He used his own money to build a new computer company called Next. Many people thought he was foolish, but Steve kept going. Next computers were powerful and beautiful, but they were too expensive. The company struggled. Steve kept working anyway. He hoped that one day, Next would make a difference. Around the same time, Steve bought a small animation studio. The studio was called Pixar. It was not doing well, but Steve believed in it. He saw magic in their work. Steve learned that starting over is hard, but it can also mean a new beginning. Pixar worked hard for years. They wanted to make the first full-length computer-animated movie. People laughed at this idea. No one thought it would work, but Steve believed in them. He helped them keep going when times got tough. In 1995, Pixar released Toy Story. It was a huge hit. It was funny, touching, and full of wonder. The world loved it. Pixar became famous overnight. Steve became a billionaire, but more important, he felt hope again. He was back to making things that mattered. Success can come from the hardest times, if you never give up. While Steve was building Pixar, Apple was having trouble. The company was losing money. Its products were not selling. People wondered if Apple would survive. The board remembered Steve's magic. They called him and asked for help. Steve was surprised. He was not sure if he wanted to go back, but in his heart, he knew he still loved Apple. Steve returned to Apple in 1997. The company was almost out of money. Many people thought it was too late, but Steve was ready for a new fight. Sometimes the world gives you a second chance. When it does, you must be ready. Steve worked day and night. He made Apple simple and focused. He cut unnecessary products. He told everyone to build things that were beautiful and easy to use. Soon, Apple launched the iMac. It was colorful and fun. People loved it. Then, Apple made the iPod, iPhone, iPad. Each one changed the world. Steve's vision was back, stronger than ever. Apple became the most valuable company in the world. Steve was proud, but he never forgot his hard times. He knew how easy it was to fall, and how hard it was to climb back. Steve's comeback was more than just success. It was proof that you can rise after you fall. Steve Jobs changed the world. He gave us tools to create, learn, and connect. He showed that great things start with a dream, even in a small garage. But Steve's story is not just about success, it is about failing, learning, and starting again. He taught us that failure is not the end. It can be a new beginning. Everyone faces hard times. Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is what you do next. Steve Jobs showed us the power of resilience and hope. If you like this story, please subscribe, like, and share with friends. Let's inspire each other to dream big and never give up. Your story could change the world too.